Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the MACC policy meeting. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and we are meeting at the Olive Township Hall, filling in for David, who is away today. We'll start, as usual, with introductions, and maybe you start with you on the left.
Okay. Howard Bauman with Port Sheldon Township.
And Ken DeWeert with Fillmore Township.
John Lanham, Michigan Department of Transportation, Lansing.
Nancy DeBoer, City of Holland.
Terry Nienhuis, Holland Township.
Kevin Kleinstra, City of Zealand.
Jim Story, Allegan County Board of Commissioners.
Russ Lau, the MACC Authority Board. Randy Vanderswag, Olive Township, filling in for Mr. Walters today.
Sherry Hunsberger, Park Township.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Board of Commissioners.
Hannes Myers of the MACC.
Tim Berkman with the MACC.
Pankaj Rajadhyaksha for the MACC, and then
Rob Bank with the MACC.
Joe Spalding with the MACC.
Kelly Goward with the MACC. Maura Garrity with the MACC.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. And our next item is to, I need a motion to approve the minutes, unless there's some changes or questions.
So moved.
Kevin, second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Public comments, I don't think we have any members of the public here. So I think we'll start with Kelly. Maybe talking about the watershed project and hit on a couple different items under that category.
All right, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, I guess, technically. So first, I want to start with the pollution prevention and good housekeeping. This is not something new. We've talked about it at the policy board before, but we have a new publication that I wanted to highlight. So just for kind of a background and review, pollution prevention and good housekeeping, or PPGH for short, it is a requirement of our MS4 permits, the municipal separate storm sewer system permits. So that is as far as policy members is concerned, that's the City of Holland and City of Zealand, Ottawa County, Allegan County, and then the 2 county road commissions are required to have pollution prevention, good housekeeping practices in place for their municipal operations. And as the name states, it is for stormwater pollution prevention, and using BMPs, that's the good housekeeping part of it. So it's really kind of being aware of what activities are occurring at a facility that have the potential to generate stormwater pollution, and then following the appropriate best management practices or good housekeeping to prevent that stormwater pollution. Beyond it being a requirement of the permittees, it is also a public education topic within the public education component of the MS4 permit, and specifically targeting commercial, industrial, and institutional audiences. And so that is what this was developed for, to fulfill that public education item. And just kind of briefly, what is in it? Again, the commercial and industrial institutional audience. So as a non-MS4 entity around the table, you would fall into that category. So part of this is for you to hopefully use and implement at your facilities. But what's contained in this kind of abridged version of kind of the host of pollution prevention, good housekeeping, are information specifically about dumpsters, lawns and landscaping, parking lots, power washing vehicles, and then green stormwater infrastructure. Our group felt that these topics are the ones that pertain most frequently to most types of commercial and institutional businesses. Power washing maybe not as much, but the others certainly have some aspect at their facilities. So kind of what we're planning to do with this, kind of distribution and adoption of these practices at the community scale. And the next topic I will talk about is the Chamber Sustainability Affinity Group. But the Chamber of Commerce is one avenue to distribute this to that commercial business audience. Because whether it's a Staples parking lot or a manufacturing facility, these practices apply to chamber members, anybody that owns a facility, owns and maintains a facility. So other avenues for distributing and adapting this, I'd mentioned kind of our non-MS4 policy board members, and specifically getting this into the hand of your facility managers. And some of them I know, some of them I don't know, some of them you may not have facility managers. But I would like to encourage you to take these back. If you have a facility manager, I mean, I've got extra copies. I would love your help in getting it to the right people, or get me into contact with those people so I can have further conversations with them. And then beyond just making sure they have the information, is I'm available to go out and assess facilities and make more specific recommendations if there's kind of activities beyond what's in this guide that should be followed for best practices. We did this for the MS4 entities, and so I have a whole host of resources already available as far as best management practice sheets that I can kind of compile into a customized handbook for each township or for the MACs as well. So kind of keep that in mind, and if I don't hear from you, I will be reaching out to your facility staff once I identify who they are. Community events is another way we can distribute this. I don't see that as a huge distribution avenue, although some of the people that we interact with, no doubt, work for businesses that this would apply to. So hopefully we can get a few out that way. And then we're looking for other opportunities. So if you know of any ways that we can get this into the hands of a commercial audience, I'm looking at things like maybe trade shows that we can go to locally. That might be a way. We have our lawn care landscaping companies, so they are aware of this and have provided some ideas that way too. And then I mentioned even the site assessments. That's certainly not just for policy members. We can certainly do that for private businesses. And we're looking at, we don't have this fully developed yet, but making that a fee-for-service sort of activity so that we can generate some funding to cover the staff time that would be involved in that, which shouldn't be a lot. It's a fairly simple process to go through. We've got a checklist that we do the property site assessments and then just putting together some customized recommendations. So any questions about the handbook, about this topic in particular? No. Yeah, I could.
Sorry, remind me again what the MS4 stands for.
It's a municipal separate storm sewer system. So it means that stormwater is carried in a separate pipe compared to sanitary. Yeah. Yep. Okay, yeah.
If you have a catch basin in a parking lot, does all that still apply?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because the catch basin doesn't catch everything. And it needs to be maintained. That's one of the best practices, is maintaining the catch basins, cleaning them out. Mm-hmm. Yep, because especially floatable items like grass clippings, catch basins don't do a whole lot for that. When they're washed in, the water's just going to carry those floatable items right on down to Lake MACC. So. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Well done. I think it's clean, and who's going to think she's going to be mean on the front? And it's got a real simple categories, readable, and that, it doesn't look too scientific and overwhelming. And there's so much to whether you use something based on how it feels.
Yep. That's one of the goals, was to make this very simple. And with this 2-page layout, we can just take this and make it like a 1-page handout too for specific events or activities. So that this is meant to be kind of a quick overview and then more detail on the second page. And I will say we did have some assistance from one of our summer interns last year, and then Mara also helped me kind of finish this up this year.
So just to add to that, so that our 6 agencies that are MS4s are the 2 cities, the 2 road commissions, and the 2 counties. And so Kelly's going around to those entities and providing training for their staff. But this resource is a tool for those, commercial and industrial businesses that are within our region to kind of give them ideas on what best practices are. And I think back to a time where I remember the city I came from, driving around one evening, taking my family out to dinner, and then seeing in a parking lot behind one of the restaurants, one of the employees dumping the bucket of, mop wash water right into that catch basin that's in the middle of the parking lot. And so, well, yeah, I didn't. So, you know, I pull up next to them and I said, you know, do you know what you're doing? And obviously they didn't. But I mean, that drain goes to our rivers, lakes, and streams. It doesn't go to the wastewater treatment plant. But that person had no idea. They just thought, well, this is where I go to take care of it. And so resources like this, you know, help prevent mistakes like that.
Hopefully.
And that's the audience we're trying to target, and just give everybody an education on what best management practices are available out there. So.
Okay.
Jim's got one.
Oh, sorry.
How many of these did we print?
I have 500, minus whatever you guys have. I have the PDF. I'm not sure if it's on the website yet, but the individual, just the little fact sheets are on the website. I don't know that I put the full, maybe I think I did put it on the website because I made it available to our lawn care partners that way. So, but yeah, I mean, we printed 500 for now because that was just a nice even number. But I mean, we printed 500 for now because that was just a nice even number. But we will certainly print more if we give them away.
Great, thank you. There's no questions on that. Move on to the next item under the letter.
Yeah, so the Sustainability Affinity Group is kind of a new group of the chamber, so I wanted to just briefly kind of review what we're doing with this. So how many of you are familiar with the chamber affinity groups? Okay, one person. Well, because there's a Downtown Zealand affinity group. Yeah. So basically, the affinity groups allow members, like it says here, the opportunity to network in a similar group with others who have similar backgrounds or interests. So like there's a Downtown Zealand affinity group for Downtown Zealand businesses to get together and talk about the issues that they are dealing with. There is a Lakeshore Latinas group of Latina business owners that are getting together to talk about issues that affect them. So most of these groups, they meet quarterly. They kind of set when they meet. They set their own agendas, what they discuss. And basically, it's to be collaborative, to share lessons learned, best practices and resources to support each other in that. And so with this idea of a sustainability affinity group, we had some early conversations with the groups listed here, some representatives from the City of Holland, from Hope College, from the Sustainability Institute, that there really needs to be a group that focuses on sustainability issues. And that's a big, broad topic. It can be anything from water to transportation, what the MACC does, but also energy and just how to have sustainable meetings. I mean, there's so many ways that we can take this, and our steering committee kind of envisioned this as a way to really, increase our sustainability efforts in the city at all levels, inside and outside, and to really kind of connect up businesses that are doing it well with those that want to do it better, and maybe form some mentoring, some peer-to-peer relationships. So I will not read this, but this is basically the mission of the group. That our steering committee worked with some chamber staff to craft this together. They've got some nice wordsmiths on their staff that took our ideas and put it into this nice statement. And really for the MACC to be involved in this, it benefits both of our programs. So again, with the pollution prevention good housekeeping, it's a way for me to reach a broader audience by really interacting with them on a one-on-one basis at these affinity group meetings. And then with the transportation program, same thing with the clean air action and then green commute, always trying to engage more of these businesses. And so this is a great forum for us to be able to do that. And also to engage them in some of the public participation processes that we both have through watershed and transportation. So we had our kickoff meeting this morning. It's been a busy morning for some of us. So we did an hour-and-a-half kickoff meeting. There were 28 participants, which the kickoff meeting is to really gauge the community interest in holding an affinity group and decide whether it's something we want to continue doing or not. It certainly is something that the chamber takes a lot of ownership in. The steering committee kind of would set the program, but the chamber does all of the kind of logistics and the coordination of it. So they want to make sure it's something worthwhile before they invest a lot of time in it. And so I think kind of our take home from the meeting today, our steering committee will meet next week to kind of debrief, but there was a lot of momentum, a lot of really interested people that came to the meeting this morning representing all sectors. We had some retail business operators, some manufacturing, some community organizations. So it really was a very mixed group of people that are all interested in some aspect of sustainability, whether it's within their own organization or reaching out into the community and engaging neighborhoods and citizens in sustainability. So I think our take home ultimately from this is there's enough people interested in this that we need to continue on and do something. We're not quite sure what that will look like yet, because some of the comments were, well, quarterly meetings, that's not enough. We need to get together more than that. So I think, again, there's enough momentum, there's enough people interested. We will keep this going. We'll just kind of keep you posted as it progresses, and certainly would invite you to participate in this. It's not necessarily restricted to chamber members. Certainly the chamber would encourage non-members that come to these affinity group meetings to become chamber members. And there will be a small fee at each quarterly meeting just to kind of ensure the buy-in from the group and cover some of the expenses of snacks and that sort of thing. So I think I covered the basics of it. So we're excited to see where this goes, and we'll continue to participate in the process. So any questions about that?
Sounds like a good effort, so thank you for doing that. Was any press involved at all?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the chamber has their own person that handles their press. They were taking pictures. And some of you probably know Ken Freestone. He started us off this morning with a song. So that is posted to our Facebook page if you want to take a look at his, it's Earth Day, so he had a special Earth Day song that he had us all sing. So.
Hopefully.
So there's a Facebook press already happening.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. If there's no questions of Kelly, again, appreciate the initiative from the MACC group. We'll move on to the transportation program, and Carolyn will start off with the Unified Work Program.
And just while Carolyn gets set up, Kelly's really championed this effort, I think, with a few others, but she's also the chairperson of this affinity group, so she's really taken that on as a leadership role, and I think she promised to produce her next report in song format next month as well, so you can look forward to that.
All right.
And as a reminder, because it is Earth Day, I just want to let you know that we forgot our recycling bin that we always bring with us to meetings. It's like, oh, it's Earth Day, and we forgot. So at the end of the meeting, if you do have something recyclable, like your water bottles or the pop cans, just feel free to leave them on the end, and we'll take care of them, because we do want to recycle them, especially today. So it is Earth Day. So for the first item, I'm going to be going over the draft Unified Work Program. So this got sent out to you in your email reminder as a PDF, or there was a link from our website for this, just because it's kind of a large document. So I brought handheld copies for you today. If you'd like to review paper, I know that's sometimes easier. This will be presented next month as an action item to approve, but we wanted to get it in front of you early and ahead of time so you can have some time to review it and look over it. Most of the time, this document doesn't really change much year to year. And as you know, having been part of this group for so many years, you know that a lot of what we do in transportation goes, it comes every single year. Some of the programs that we have to work on are annual, and so a lot of this document doesn't change too often, and you'll see a lot of the familiar things that we do, like Payzer reporting every year, data collection section with providing traffic counts, things like that don't change much. So you'll see a lot of it is very similar. And to kind of break it up and to make it a little bit easier, there's 4 sections to our Unified Work Program. And this is just showing what we do every single year. So we have our basic administrative kind of work that we do for the transportation program. We have short-range planning and long-range planning, but then we also kind of have those special projects and studies that we work on. So for this year, kind of what's new for 2020, for this upcoming year, for the new fiscal year, Under short-range planning, air quality conformity. And as you are familiar, the last couple of months at these meetings, I've been having you pass air quality resolutions. I have another one for you today, coming up after this. But so we added that as a work item because as staff, we are spending more time on air quality conformity. Once a month, we have to send in our amendments that we bring to this committee. We have to send them through this air quality committee that's made up of EPA, FTA, MDOT, all different members, DEQ, and we have to bring those. So some of it's just mostly, it's the staff time of putting the list together, holding the meetings for that group. So we added that in as a new work item for UWP because that's something we're spending time on this next year. Under special projects, 3.2, pedestrian and bicycle roadway safety. We had this in the UWP for 19 this current year, but we'd like to continue on and do a little bit more with it this next fiscal year. Under that work item, we'd like to see a little bit more public education around safety. Maybe something similar to how Grand Rapids did their program, really trying to figure out what's a good way to get out to the community, both to drivers and to cyclists. Rules of the road, what's safe, what's expected, be visible. And even under that point too, there's a section of that chapter that does talk a little bit about the possibility of looking at intersections that could be dangerous. So we will be, as staff, and maybe even forming a small technical committee for this, looking at a couple of locations in our area that might have high crash rates for pedestrians and cyclists, and then checking out, is there something with that intersection that's an issue? So maybe even getting a consultant involved and looking at, should this intersection be designed differently to improve safety? So we'd like to do a little bit more on that for 2020. Also a new one under special projects, number 3.5, is the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee. Some of you may have been around in this group 10 years ago for the 2010 census. And we'd like to do something a little similar where, a lot of you have been here a while, so I see you laughing. So actually, that's a point. If anyone has been a part of the 2010 Census Committee or was around for the updates on that, we'd love to talk to you. Just kind of scanning through some of the folders in the office, trying to get a good idea of what that committee looked like. I don't believe any of the actual committee members are on this board, but maybe you heard some updates. So we'd like to kind of hear how that went if you were around during that time. But the Complete Count Committee is essentially us getting out into the community, making sure everyone gets counted and counted the correct way once. We are a big, it's a big issue for us. As you know, for your townships, your cities, your departments, having a complete count and ensuring that everyone is counted for the census usually determines your dollars, how much comes in based on a population. So we definitely want to make sure that everyone's counted correctly and in the right place. So that will be for next fiscal year, and we'll be even starting that conversation quite soon. Another piece that's continuing on for 2020 is under long-range planning 4.6, regional transit and access connectivity. So I will be working with Elisa Hookwater on this over the next year. This item was really kind of looking at where the bus stops are located and are they in conjunction with places that people live and work, and seeing if there is a disconnect between getting people from their homes to work in an efficient manner if they use MACC transit or they use public transportation. Do they have to, if person A to point B, do they have to use multiple routes or is it just one straight? So Elisa Hookwater and I will be doing a little bit more work on that in the coming year. Any questions on the UWP at the moment? All right. Well, so we'll bring this to you as an action item next month. Okay. All right, the next piece is future socioeconomic data. A memo went out regarding future SE data. And the thing I wanted to let you know is that our technical committee, which some of you are on, has looked at this for the past 2 months. So this has been on the agenda for 2 months ahead of this meeting. Future socioeconomic data, it was built off of the previously approved current data. So future data is created. So there's kind of a spreadsheet down here. The spreadsheet that is on the photo is all of the population, housing, employment numbers. That future year data that we're predicting was built off, with the model, was built off of the current trend scenarios, in the current numbers. So really looking at what's in place now, who lives where, how many businesses there are, and this data came from that. So the tech committee spent a lot of time on the current data, approved that, it looked good, and this future data is based off of that. So yes, tech has spent a couple of months with this. We heard some comments. John Roberts from MDOT, he is the travel demand modeler and is in charge of this data. He took some of the comments, made some tweaks based on some local knowledge of where someone knew growth was going to happen. And now we have this final SU data that the technical committee would like you to approve. And are there any questions, though, before you make a decision approving the future SE data that will get used in our future TIP and our next long-range transportation plan?
Go ahead, excuse me, I do have a question. You're going to be asking us to approve the data without having seen it?
It was included in the agenda packet and on the email. So it was attached on the email. So so on the bottom here with the memo, the TAS maps were included in the email reminder, also with the numbers. So both pieces. So the map here, the TAS, you use that map boundary as a key to look at the numbers.
It's a spreadsheet that has several tabs, a lot of data, but looking at population, housing, and employment, and building off of what has already been approved historically and projecting that out into the future for the purposes of planning. But that's why we let the technical committee have it for a couple months, because we figured that the technical folks would really want to drill into that data, and if they had any questions, we could work with them on that. But they did vote to recommend it to you for your approval.
Who's on the tech committee that's here right now?
Howard and Ken.
Did you have any comments on some of that stuff we worked on?
And kind of a piece too with the future data, this helps with the travel demand models that MDOT has to run for our plans. And I think the one piece that I would even say has even more impact because it's built off of it is that the current year numbers. What employment looks like here now, currently, the population. So because that one, I think as the tech and policy months ago felt that was very accurate and good data, that this one is based off of that and really just uses projections and trends for our population in our area. And it's extrapolating out to the year 2045. Yeah.
Jerry, yeah.
So would you just re-email that?
I can.
Just in case somebody
Yes.
besides me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I will do that.
For a friend?
Yep, I'll send that out when we get back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But members of the tech committee recommend approval then?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we can get the
I think we discussed it at least a couple months, and there was a lot of data that was gone through. And if we started doing that here, we'd need a couple months.
We basically looked at our land use plan and how it was going to fit future growth. So that's the way we did it.
Yeah, we did too.
That's why we have representatives on those committees.
I would recommend approval
Okay.
from our council.
I would support it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And I think Carolyn, up next, we have the air quality conformity.
So like I mentioned, now you're getting very familiar with it, I think this is month 3 now. We have another air quality conformity resolution for Pumpkin to sign today. The air quality conformity, just as a quick recap, as I mentioned for the UWP chapter, that we have these meetings, we have to submit all of our projects, any amendments to this air quality group. It was mandated that we have resolutions. So the last 2 months that we met, we signed a resolution for Allegan County and Ottawa County for the current TIP, so the 17 through 20 Transportation Improvement Program. This one is now for Ottawa County for the new TIP cycle. So we gave them all of our projects that are expected in our TIP for the next 4 years. And MDOT ran all the projects through the modeling. And they turned out that our programs for the TIP, all the projects meet air quality regulations. So we are not going over our air quality, we're sitting pretty. So this document's saying that our TIP projects have met conformity analysis and that we can move forward with our jobs, the projects. So this is just the next one. You don't have to do them for Allegan County this time. Allegan County, there were different requirements for this new TIP, so only Ottawa County for you. This is probably the last one you'll have to sign until the long range plan is out. Any questions over our air quality conformity resolution? Number 1904.
I move that we adopt resolution 1904.
All in favor?
Support.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Aye.
Motion, the next one? Okay.
Hopefully, it'll be a few months still until you get another
Next
one
one?
of those. Yeah. Maybe late summer. Okay. Well, because of the holiday weekend, I'm not guaranteeing that maybe everyone saw this, but there was an email that went out Friday evening from me. There was an update to the amendment list that was sent to you in your packets. I had to do some work with MACC Transit, and that's the main bulk of the updates. So one way, and I said this a little bit in the email, but to read this, any of the project numbers that are bolded and darker and underlined, those are changes that have been made from the last amendment. So a lot of them are the same job numbers, but I had to make extra changes. So there's quite a few of them. I worked with MDOT and MACC Transit on Friday. There were some substantial changes that need to be made, mainly with the way that the jobs are programmed within the MDOT JobNet system, the online system. So a little bit of history and background with this. The transit side of things with the buses, the way that jobs are programmed within that system have changed over the last few months. So they have new requirements. And the 19 and 20 jobs were programmed quite a long time ago. So those changes had to be made to those older jobs, but a lot of times you'll see abandonments and then new jobs. So a lot of the time, the online system would not let you make changes, even though they were federally required. So I had to go in, delete the job, and then make a new one for it. So that's an amendment. So that's why it's added to this list. So it's quite a lengthy list. And a lot of this is just that technical side of things, fixing things within the system. That's here for you to review, and there is quite a bit to go through. So if you do want to talk about this, I can do that one-on-one with you, absolutely, because it is kind of a spider web of things. One extra project that was added that isn't MACC Transit related, the third one down, there's a 2019 job that MDOT added in on Friday. They just got programmed. And it's for I-96. They're doing a full concrete repair. So they're doing a full depth repair on some of the concrete on I-196. So they wanted us to add that in for this summer. Any other questions on this big amendment this month?
Carolyn?
Yes.
No? We need a motion to make the amendment then? Hear a motion?
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Carolyn.
All right, thank you.
Up next, John, if there's anything from NDOT that you'd like to share with us, that'd be fantastic.
Nothing significant, maybe, other than I'll be working with Carolyn and Tim on next month. Well, actually, it'll be the 1st of June, I think, is when you'll have your next meeting. You'll be considering changes to the text of the TIP regarding the performance measures. And I'll be working with Carolyn and Tim to get those updated for you all, for your actions at that next meeting. But that's all that really I have significantly anyway, from your perspective. There's nothing new at the federal level that I know of, actually. So the only thing I would say is just based from my own experience, I wish that the federal government were considering funding increases that would help us out a lot too. And if you all had the opportunity to have a conversation with your federal representatives, that would be something good to mention to them. I think, you know, we're considering at the state level increasing revenues significantly, but I wish that the federal, that they were considering that at the federal level as well. We could leverage our funding a great deal more if there were more federal revenues available. So it used to be that with generally the federal match is like 80-20 for federal revenues to state revenues, state and local revenues, and it used to be that we would obtain probably 2/3 of our funding, transportation funding, from federal revenue sources. And nowadays it's almost the reverse. That state and local revenues for transportation projects is maybe 2/3, and the federal level 1/3. So it should be nice to be able to turn that around.
Where does the federal government get that money from? Is that for federal gas tax?
From the federal gas tax, yeah, from the highway trust fund. And there hasn't been that much conversation recently at the federal level. Well, there's been some conversation, but just to the fact that the highway trust fund is sort of in maybe dire is not the correct word, but it's
If the word comes to mind, probably.
Now you got like a little 4-letter word you just put out there.
It's close to it anyway, yeah.
So if MDOT's not getting it or Michigan's not getting it, who's getting that money?
Well, we're getting it. It's just it needs to be increased. It's just that the level of what's needed on a project by project basis, let's say, or a program by program basis has increased dramatically in the last couple of decades, whereas the funding from the highway trust fund has just basically remained pretty much stagnant. So, but anyway, sorry to get on my soapbox about that.
No, that's good to know. Okay, thanks, John. Up next, administrative issues, and Tim is the floor.
All right, thank you. And kind of on that note, if you didn't catch that email that Carolyn sent out on Friday, it included a presentation that Tom Bird had shared with us that Brett Laughlin over at the Road Commission for Ottawa County presented to the Chamber, talking about state fundings issues and kind of the governor's proposal and how that impacts the course of what has been done up to this point. So take a look at that. Very informative. I thought it was well laid out. Gives you a real perspective on local impacts associated with that. So take a look at that email. So you've had a heavy lunch. It's a beautiful day. What could be better than discussing budget at this point, but I usually like to insert some, as I call, Easter eggs or something funny in presentations, and I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't have that here, so you're going to have to work really hard to hang with me because we're talking numbers, but we'll try to keep it moving. So at your place, you have a document that looks like this. This is actually fresh as of Friday. I've been working with staff and with our accountant, Chris Brown, on several iterations of this, but I'll try to synthesize all those lines down into just a few. And talking first about the revenue, we have the governmental funding that we get through grants, jurisdictional dues that you pay, watershed dues, and then this other category that is like some minor investment income, some private contributions. And then also this year we put our community enhancement program into that category as far as anticipated contributions, because that really wasn't reflected in the budget before. So a couple of highlights here. You'll see that big $220,000 reduction. So this first column shows what has been approved for the current year, the change in the middle column, and then the green column on the far right. That's what I'm proposing for the next fiscal year. So you see that $221,000 reduction. That's in large part due to the work that we're wrapping up on some existing Great Lakes Restoration Enhancement and Great Lakes Commission grants. So those are running out. Another one, we have a slight increase in the planning grant dollars we get through MDOT, Clean Air Action Funding, and then Regional Prosperity Initiative funds for work that Kelly's doing on the Watershed Collaborative side of things. The other big one that we're going to spend most of the time here talking about is the watershed dues. They've been collectively held at $110,000 since 2005, and actually in 2004 they were $140,000. So they took a little dip in 2005 and have been that way ever since. So we're going to talk about that. So total revenues was $745,000 over there on the right. Here's the expenses. For transportation, watershed, and indirect. You'll see something to note here under the watershed side. Again, expenses are expected to be about $181,000 less than the current year, and that's again because we're wrapping up some of that work on the existing grants. So a lot of that's pass-through funding that goes into implementation, construction practices in the field. So in summary, then we've got total revenues expected of $745,000, total expenses of $741,000, so we're to the good by a few $1,000s, about $3,600 with a watershed dues increase. So this table is what's in your memo that I sent out to you with the agenda packet, looking at how we would step into that proposed increase of $40,000. So you can see your individual agency on there. But I want to spend the rest of the time talking about this because anytime, whether it's your family budget or your agency budget, when you see an increase, you ask two obvious questions. Well, what am I getting for that, and is it worth it? And so I hope to answer those two questions as we kind of walk through some of these things and spend the rest of the time talking about the watershed project. Carolyn already went through with the UWP kind of what our plan is for the transportation side and how that's going to roll out. Now I want to talk solely about the watershed side. So just using a blank sheet of paper, I asked Kelly and Rob to help me develop what does the watershed project cost? You know, this expanded budget aside, what does it take to run the program? It's about $230,000, which is, as of today, more than twice what the generated revenues are of $110,000. Now we seek to make that up in grants, you know, where we can, but that's a big leap to take it. So how do we break out that $230,000? Three main categories. MS4 compliance and assistance, we estimate takes about $60,000. That's what Kelly started off today talking to you about, the good housekeeping procedures, pollution prevention. And this we'll dive into a little bit further, but the agricultural BMPs, the work that Rob is doing, getting out there, meeting with farmers, encouraging them to adopt different practices to, you know, clean and filter stormwater runoff and better enhance the watershed as a whole. Estimate costs about $90,000 of that $230,000. And then the last, I just titled watershed implementation, basically $80,000. That's how we get that $230,000. So some of the challenges as we were diving into this year's budget and how do we slice this, again, mentioning that dues have been constant for quite some time. I also feel as an organization we need to better sell what we're offering. I think we do a lot of services to the agencies represented here and beyond, but we're not necessarily capturing, I think, a revenue to offset those services that are being offered, and we'll get into that a little bit further. And then this kind of caveat I put here, grants are inconsistent. They often don't support significant staff time. I use the analogy of grants fund cake, not bread. You know, the bread is what you survive on. Cake is over and above. And so oftentimes we have to be able to show that we're putting in a substantial staff time as in-kind match to be competitive with those that we're going up against for the grant dollars. And so having only $110,000 makes that extremely difficult when you see kind of where these three categories line up. So anytime you're looking at where you're going, I think it's always good to take a peek in the rear view and see where you've come and kind of visit some history. The watershed project began back in '96. Why is that something that's here at the MACC? You know, the MACC started as a MPO. We are an MPO. Transportation is a large focus of ours, but we also have this other division of the watershed. Well, there's no doubt it's a regional issue. There's the watershed boundary touches all of you in some respect. The MACC is an organization that can bring stakeholders together for regional issues, and we developed a phosphorus reduction plan originally back in 1999, which is again the goal that we're trying to reduce here in cleaning up Lake MACC. Updated that plan in 2012. And then the MS4 side of things, again, I mentioned we have 6 MS4 agencies, or 2 cities, 2 road commissions, 2 counties. Started this collaborative effort back in 2001 with the MACC and offering this MS4 permit assistance and compliance. We'll talk a little bit further about that. What's been done, I think people are learning more and more about what the watershed is, what they can do. We use, you know, the events, the community events that we're at, the newsletters, the postings that we put out there, adding to that public education. Done quite a bit of water quality research and monitoring, best management practices, getting people to think differently, act differently with stormwater runoff. Created the Watershed Partners Program that Kelly's talked to you about before with lawn care companies, and trying to create this green stormwater vision, and again, getting agencies to think about what they can do to release cleaner and lower volumes of stormwater runoff. So wanted to talk about ag BMPs, and plus it's nice to look at a picture after having seen so much text. I see sunflowers, and Rob sees 11 other green species in there. You'll have to ask him what they are. But obviously, beautiful picture of cover crop installation. So some stats about the ag BMP side of things. Again, just kind of reviewing where we've come from, what are we doing. This breaks down kind of the different funding sources that we've had since 2011. More recently, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and of course, Project Clarity and the work that we're doing as a key partner to that. But you look at the total, 23,210 acres of implemented conservation practices. That's a big number. Now, I've worked in land development for 15 years, and even I have a hard time appreciating what is 23,000 acres. So I did a little math. That's covering the city of Holland twice, or covering the city of Zeeland 12 times. So just to kind of give yourself an idea, that's making an impact. You know, that's getting to some scale. Of the 63 farmers that have participated in either Project Clarity or the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, 54 have worked in some way, shape, or form with Rob. And our phosphorus reduction goal is 91,000 pounds through our plan that we've signed with the DEQ, now the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, I think as of today. We're 26% towards that. So still have a long way to go, but you can see there's movement happening. And you saw that in this dashboard report that Kelly talked to you about a couple of months ago that the Ennis Water Resource Institute put out recently, and showing that movement in the right direction of phosphorus levels within the lake. And I would submit to you that that is in large part due to the agricultural BMPs that are being installed and the new way of doing and thinking that Rob is on the front lines for. And if we don't have somebody doing that, I don't think it's just going to organically happen. I think you need somebody out there to be championing that effort, pushing that envelope, bringing the carrots along to provide that incentive. So MS4 compliance and assistance, want to spend a little bit more time on that and just personally tell you that the agency that I came from, we had a full-time staff member in my department devoted to this. And I was the envy of all the other communities in our region that did not have that, because they wondered how are they going to get everything done that they had to get done to be compliant with this program. Kelly serves as that individual for the 6 MS4s that we have. MS4 looks at not just the quantity of stormwater runoff, but the quality of the discharge. And you hear her talk about the 6 minimum control measures that are part of that program. Well, the interesting thing here is of those 6, the 5 highlighted in blue are ones that she's been directly involved in or that the MACC has had a hand in. So public education, we're out there doing the community events, fulfilling that quota of what you need to do to actively engage the community. Public participation, she has the watershed committee that's meeting and seeks other ways to get the public to participate and be a part of the plan development and plan implementation. IDEP, illicit discharge elimination program, she developed the plan and is providing the training to the agencies. A lot of these things too aren't just one and done. You know, put the plan on the shelf, check the box, you're good. These are recurring things that have to happen. Post-construction site runoff control. She assists with the development and adoption of stormwater ordinances. That's taken a lot of time, but working with the drain commissioners' offices and going to our agencies to develop stormwater ordinances that are compliant with the rules that are set under the MS4 program. And then you heard about this last one here today. And then, again, on the recurring basis, she's not only submitting the permit applications on your behalfs, but she's compiling and submitting annual reports and assisting with audits as they come, kind of being that facilitator and helper. And then I just like to throw these in every now and again to show how not to produce a PowerPoint slide. But I asked her, give me a list of other things to put up there. And she didn't intend for me to put this whole list, but I just decided to. But the point being, in the other category, and this could go on and on and on, we could throw a dart at this wall and talk about any one of these items for 10 or 15 minutes, but you don't want to do that. But to point out a couple, we're maintaining the watershed management plan, providing, we're averaging about 15 community events per year, getting the word out. Road stream crossing inventories, we're partnering with the road commission and drain commissioner offices, giving that opportunity for citizen involvement, and then having that information available will help identify problem sites and further enable us to prioritize projects that are needed. And we could go on and on and on, but a lot of stuff that is happening that you get sound bites of and little bits and pieces of, but I think it's important to know this is what your dues are going to support. So one of the things the executive committee has been talking about in addition to this that I'm explaining to you here today is strategic planning. And how do we further define what this group wants to see and what direction do we want to go. And just kind of as a little exercise, I developed, I think watershed project might be a little bit too narrowly focused to name that because there are so many other things happening. So it's almost like an environmental program, and maybe there's some other better sounding title, but this is something that I would like for us to consider as we move towards a strategic planning effort. This fall is kind of what we're targeting. But just to lay out an idea here, the MACC environmental program, has subcategories of the watershed project, MS4 compliance, regional concerns and interests that are ever changing and things coming up, and then also partnerships. Under those headings, with the watershed project, we're doing this and so much more, but promoting best management practices, getting the word out, our work with Project Clarity. Under the MS4 side of things, working on those stormwater ordinances, pollution prevention and good housekeeping. Regional interests, we're working with the county on the groundwater concerns, working with some of our agencies on the following up with the Lake MACC fish study that was done by some Hope College students last year. Regional Prosperity Initiative is looking at sustainable watershed funding. That's something that Kelly's very involved in. Nature-rich communities is just kind of a new idea that she's exploring with the Outdoor Discovery Center. And then I just threw up there an example of, electronics recycling grants come up. And, the MACC could serve as a facilitator for some of our smaller townships to go after things like that as they come out. If you don't have the staff or the manpower to do it, we could be that conduit. And then partnering with other organizations like wildlife groups and conservation districts. Now, I lay all that out there, and it turns out, I think, I'm probably a better storyteller than I am a visionary, because except for one or two of these bubbles, all of these things are already happening. But they could certainly be expanded and enhanced. But without contributions and funding, obviously, they're not sustainable. We can't continue down those roads. So next steps, we're not adopting or acting on this budget today. Wanted to get it in front of you with plenty of time. We will be asking, though, for your adoption at the June 3rd meeting, which is our next meeting. We don't have one in May. In the meantime, Kelly or I or Rob or anybody really are available to meet with you or your technical staff if you have questions, or if you want us to present this to your boards as you're making decisions. We're certainly available for that. And then I wanted to say this due increase is a step, and there's other steps that we're working on and talking about as we get to fully funding this effort. But this is kind of the first initial step, and it's a sizable one. But the one thing I wanted to point out, a $40,000 increase just barely stays ahead of inflation from 2005. So it's over time, had they been increased, we probably wouldn't be asking for such a big leap. And that's it from my end for budget talk. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Tim, do other MPOs have the same, they may call it a different thing, but do most MPOs have transportation and then water section?
Now, some do and some don't. So like an example, our counterparts in Grand Rapids, the Grand Valley Metro Council certainly has this kind of environmental division, and they have other divisions as well. But I believe like Kalamazoo, as an example, they just have the MPO. And so, I don't know what the exact split would be across the state, but I think certainly some use it as an opportunity to cover other regional interests and concerns, which is what the MACC has chosen to do by having the watershed program.
I'm going to ask a question, partly out of ignorance. You went through and showed a breakdown of approximate costs for various things. And we're all, based on our background and your experience. I was on Grand Valley Metro Council for a number of years, and it is different. And they're probably all different, depending on what needs or what the customers ask for. That's probably going to be part of our strategic planning to try and figure that out. And maybe you can't do this, because I know it's not that simple. I've done budgets for over 40 years. But is there a way to connect with those cost centers that you showed what the revenue is, if it's specific? And I'm going to, first of all, we're very supportive, as you know, because I've talked to you about the dues increase. I've actually raised that issue over the years, why we haven't. Park Township hasn't raised its water rates in the 10 years I've been on the board. And I told them we didn't need to. Now we've got a study that says we're way behind. We're the lowest in Ottawa County. These things need to be looked at, and we need to fund what we value, okay? Are there any services, and I'm going to use a specific example only because of a little bit of experience I had at Grand Valley Metro, on the MS4. Is there revenue offset here? I know there was in Kent County.
Right, so we do not bill separately for the MS4s. And that's one of the ideas that I've talked about with the executive committee, and maybe that's one of those steps that we look at in the future. But I know Grand Valley Metro Council, as an example, does have a separate billing structure and mechanism, and I think Ottawa County, they may charge like, I've got the rate sheet, something like $9,000 or something I want to say. And Kelly, that's for their work with public education, I think alone. Okay, and so Kelly's doing public education as well for the MACC area, and then all those other things that I'm listing. We don't parse that out or bill it separately. But right now, you know, everything just kind of goes into that collective pot of watershed dues, and this is a portion of what we've entitled watershed, but I think is really part of a bigger program by title. And so it's just kind of how is that split up? You know, the other thing, the watershed dues are set up, again, just like the transportation side, based on population, not necessarily factoring in the land or area that is within the watershed. That's another component of that formula that I've looked at, but it you know, you start to change one thing and it triggers another thing, and all that to say, I think that has to be part of the conversation going forward. But today we were just looking for that initial step of adjusting the dues, and then continue, you know, year after year chipping away at the rest of it.
We're all beneficiaries of all these programs, whether we're direct recipients. For example, we're not in MS4. Right. I think you said there's 6. I'm not sure who those are. But if there's a way to factor out and cost back where there's a direct beneficiary, I would think that that would be valuable to do. But I also recognize you can't do that on everything. And even everybody sitting at this table benefits from all those services, even if it's not directly.
Right.
That's what this organization is about.
Absolutely.
But we need to fund our organization, and we need to look at how we operate and how others operate in some of the same areas. I'm not going to get specific, but there's some potential. I don't think the MACC is getting credit for things that we're doing. And again, we're all in it together with other organizations without getting specific, but we also ought to get at least footnoted, if not promoted.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that in the executive committee, I think, a couple times. And even before Kim came here, I know that's something we've always struggled with, is maybe not taking enough credit, because you want to be humble, but at the same token, then people don't know what you do. So.
The important thing is that whatever this gets done, not who gets the credit, but every once in a while, particularly when you got to find funding to sustain yourself.
People need to know that why are they paying that? Absolutely.
And that's in part what I meant by that bullet point early on, that I said we need to better sell what we're offering. I think the MACC does deserve some more credit than it's getting for some of the work that's happening in the region. And that's hard for me to say because, you know, inherently the culture that I've come from is, you know, everybody's just working together. We don't do it for individual credit. But when it comes time for funding, people need to know that they're getting something for their investment. And that's where I think we need to do a better job of selling what it is that we're doing and offering. Yeah.
That was going to be my first comment. I appreciated what you showed as your work and would like to see the general public more aware of all of that. And when you talked about electronic recycling, raised the question, have you approached toxic recycling or disposal, I should say?
Is that already being handled by?
Well, Ottawa County does a better job than Allegan County does.
Okay.
Say that. I mean, there's resource recovery facilities that you can drop off. And I know much more about the Ottawa County program than I do the Allegan County.
But yeah, we're not looking to duplicate a service that's already there, but that one example I put on there is because I know a grant opportunity came out and it was for, I think, geared towards smaller townships. I don't remember what the cap was, but rural areas. Okay. And so that was just an example of things that come up inevitably that, you know, we could be the resource for or serve as. But again, as we further shape and fine tune the vision of the organization and this arm of it, you know, that's something where we could certainly use some collective insights from the group around the table to find out, are we going in the right direction?
Tim, what is the watershed due funding formula? I know it's based on population.
It is. So the, I said it's been constant at 110, but you guys have seen some changes over time because as population shifts and fluctuates, that $110,000 pie just gets divvied up a little bit differently. So it's population is the main factor, and then you just take that denominator of 110,000 and divvy it up. Now, the road commissions and I believe the counties have a little bit different mechanism, I think, of how that's accounted for, and I have to get back to you on that. But that's where I gave the population numbers to our accountant, and he worked it out the exact math on that. But I can find out.
And then we definitely support the MACC watershed, but we've always struggled. We have one little corner in our township, and we're being assessed on our entire population, which the majority of it is in another watershed. So this is going to be a very hard sell for our board. Now, I'd support an increase if you want to use the population that's in the watershed.
2 people?
I'm saying the other watershed would probably love them dues. So and then to ask for just about 38% increase is going to be a tough sell for me. And I'm representing our township, so of course. But I support the watershed. But we have to be careful. I do how we support that. I understand.
Under our bylaws, I guess it's bylaws, do we need like a 2/3 or 50% or unanimous with and how I was thinking that very thing, because I remember when we went through, I can't remember what it was, and you and I talked about how you just got that little corner. I even found out that part of Park Township is not in the watershed. Along Lake Michigan, those homes where we get all of our tax money from, they're not in the watershed.
But they're,
And I don't know what formula you use, but out of fairness, there ought to be something out
we're
there.
not sending, no one is sending our township money for the other watershed. So 100% of our residents are sending money towards the MACC watershed, which is great, the watershed program. That's road.
So recognizing that that will be a tough sell.
Yeah, right.
What's going to happen relative to a vote? Is there something in our bylaws? It seemed like there was.
Yeah, we'd have to, I don't remember all the details. I know we went through a lot of changes, and then prior to that, we had a lot of planning sessions to come up with formulas for use. But we'll have to revisit.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I don't think the watershed dues are really mentioned in particular in that. Do you know offhand, Kelly? I mean, it's certainly the transportation dues are talked about, the dollar per capita, but I would I'll have to research that and get back to you. But I would imagine it's just like anything else when it comes to dues or the bylaws themselves. You know, this group can vote on it from the MACC end, but then your individual agencies, of course, have to vote to say yes, we're willing to contribute this to that.
And, most of us have been here for a few years, but just to put some color on it, just the big reason, I don't know why it wasn't changed from 2005, but I think there's 2 things. One is the component of grants have changed, where I think it's becoming harder to find grants that cover staff time, where in the past they used to. So, the watershed program was able to self-fund a little bit. And then, Project Clarity came along, and it was a lot of heartburn to get contributions and all of that. And I think that was the other reason we said, well, we can't go and ask them, to do this, and increase dues. So I think that may have been the other reason we held off on that. But obviously, we've come to a time where we need to make some changes, and they may not be really dramatic, but I think it will help bridge that gap.
And I expect, and I think our board will support this, how you can't speak for your board, just kind of have a feeling. we're major contributors to Project Clarity also,
Yes.
and major beneficiaries, as, again, everybody at this
Yeah,
table is,
absolutely.
whether it be directly or indirectly.
Yep.
I mean, it's important for the area. So I hope we find a way to pull this off.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Anything else? You gonna cover the financial report?
I will, so. That, let me know.
And we've got the MACC Executive Committee report.
So I just want to acknowledge, what I talked to you about today. I've been getting some input all along the way from the executive committee. This is a big discussion item, but appreciate their insights on that. And then I touched on it as far as strategic planning. Would like to target the fall, September or October, so I'd like input from you as you see fit with your schedules as to what would be an ideal time. I was thinking we would have, the policy meeting on the regular date and time in either September or October, and then adjourn, and following that, as long as we're all together, devote some time in your afternoons to stick around and do that. Al Vandenberg was brought up several times by different folks as far as being a good facilitator for that effort. I reached out to him, and he was more than happy and willing to offer his services for that. So he said just let him know September or October is far enough out for him that he should be able to accommodate whatever. So any other questions on the summary that's in your packet, feel free to let me know.
Thank you.
And then I have one other thing, yeah. One other item I'd like to just slip on here under administrative issues is to recognize Joe Speldy, who's sitting over there at the head of the dais. Joe came to us a little over a year ago as an intern, and then we moved into hiring him as a part-time program assistant. It was at the time where we needed some help with administrative issues, but then having his planning background and knowledge, he was able to fill in and cover some planning-related activities. Unfortunately, May 2nd will be Joe's last day with us. He's moving to the big city of Chicago. Adventure awaits. He'll be close to the lakeshore in Lincoln Park, so pretty neat location. I think you'll have to ask him about it, but really thankful for his service here. I knew we weren't going to get to keep him long because I knew something bigger and better was on the horizon for him. We just didn't know how long, but what that helped us do is, as Carolyn, Mara, and I were all pretty collectively new to our positions, that helped buy us some time and help with that transition. So he smoothed over some of the wrinkles for us, and we certainly appreciate his time and service with us.
Thank you, Joe.
If we don't approve that as this board, then you can't go, right?
There you go. Good point.
Well, I would just make a small note. He's probably going to something big. So I don't know about that.
Thank you.
But back in visit.
So if we go to Chicago, we could come and stay overnight? All right.
Just say.
Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Randy, typically, our host will just bring us up to speed on what's going on in the township, and I know you're filling in for Todd, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that, but I'll thank Todd for letting me know in advance.
Oh, okay. It's just, progress.
15 minutes,
things like that.
15 minutes, okay. A couple things that we have going on. We're very rural, and we have been working very closely with Joe Bush from Water Resource Committee, his department, and we're really taking the last 2 or 3 years a real effort to our county drains here. He has offered his assistance where he has his staff walk our drains. We as a township have walked some of the drains, and we've spent in the last 2 to 3 years, roughly $250,000 to $300,000 out of our own general fund to get water moving. And I tell you what, we have just had a huge feedback from our farmers. They're thrilled with it. Drains always seems to be a thing that's kind of on the back burner. We don't worry about them until we have a 5-inch rain or something, and we got flooded farmland. So that project, and Joe's really been very helpful, and now we feel we've got all of our drains clean, and now we just work very closely on just keeping them up to date. And we're figuring this year we might not have to spend more than $30,000 once we've made that initial investment. And one thing, we do not assess any of the farmers. That has been a big issue in the township in the past. Well, I don't want to tell you how long I've been on the board, but the first 2 years I was on the board, 30 years ago, I had a huge assessment on my farm. I said, you've got to be kidding me. We got to pay this much for drains. And that never felt good. And over the years, we as a board decided, hey, it benefits the entire township. So we do not assess any of our farmers for their drainage work that we do. Roads, we have a meeting tomorrow night. We've got a couple roads with the road commission, a couple roads that are being paved. As rural as we are, we still have a lot of gravel roads, but we do have a millage that we collect 2 mills a year. That brings in about $400,000. So we try to pave a mile, 2 miles, whatever we can every year. And now we're also working, as we know, we need to update some of our roads that the county just can't keep up, even though they're paved. So we're working very closely with Brett and Mr. Berg's commission, and it's been a good relationship. So that's really, just want to thank you for coming out to Olive today. Nice day for a ride out in the country. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
If there's no other issues to discuss or comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our next meeting would be June 3rd at Fillmore Township Hall.